Shalom and welcome to my sukkah. Welcome to my neighborhood in Sfat, Israel during this festival of Sukkot. We're going to talk about what we learned the fourth night of Sukkot. We learned from one of our shepherds. All the shepherds come every night, but each night a different shepherd is focused. And on the fourth night, we learn from Moses. And the emotional character trait that Moses epitomizes is something called victory and perseverance. In Hebrew, the word is netzach. And the idea is that for something to really truly be a victory, it has to be eternal. It has to last. It can't be a temporary victory. So when you think about Moses, God appeared to Moses in the burning bush and he said, I want you to go to Pharaoh. And he told him, I'm going to perform these signs in front of Pharaoh. And it's going to be signs that you're going to be talking about to your sons and your sons' sons for all future generations. Sure enough, we today in our prayers, we're still talking about what God did to free the slaves from Pharaoh. And so God is talking to Moses about this idea of victory, but not just a short-lived victory, an eternal victory, a victory for all time, a victory that just takes perseverance and has its ups and downs, but every time it's down, just like if you're on a sports team, when you're down, you have to figure out, you have to have that mental toughness to figure out what you need to change, what you need to do differently. This is the characteristic that God gives each of us, made in his image, this characteristic called netzach, that's epitomized by Moses. So the Jewish people at that time, they needed an education. God educated the Jews first, but the idea is that it would trickle out to everyone else in future generations, but he started with them. Okay, so what was going on? We had Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Abraham was telling the whole world about monotheism, about the one true God. But by the time we get 7 generations from Abraham to Moses, they've all but lost they're in a culture, they're in the Egyptian culture. They're not only slaves physically, but they're slaves spiritually. They're caught right up in all of the idolatry that's going on in Egypt. So they've lost this gift of monotheism from their forefathers, and it's there somewhere, but it's so small at this point. And so God says, I need to remind them of the God of their forefathers. I'm going to come in, I'm going to do these signs, I'm making my debut on the world, and they're going to know that I am the God of creation. The Egyptians were saying that the Nile River was God, that Pharaoh was God, all of these different gods. And God was saying, I'm the God of creation. I created Pharaoh. I created the Nile River. And so he wants the people to see and to believe in him, that he has the power. He's capable of freeing them from their political enemies. And so they have to have this trust in him. And he wants them to know, I'm not asking you to go from one tyrant to another tyrant. He's the God of their forefathers. He's the God that loves them. He's the God that if he gives them a command, it's not a command like build me a pyramid. It's a command that I'm going to show you how to have a better life. I'm going to get you out of this groundhog's loop that you're in for hundreds of years. Every day was the same. Every day was drudgery. Every day was about just getting up and just doing what Pharaoh wanted them to do. Not having any kind of imagination of what it could be like to have a different life. It was just this hopeless drudgery that they were in. And they were caught up in the idolatry that was all around them. So they had to get this education about, just let me tell you who the real God is here. He did all these signs for them that they would recognize and know. So it starts with the Jews. They would recognize and know who the one true God was, and then take this message to the rest of the world. And this is an eternal victory. This is what we're still doing today. And so the first commandment that he gave them had to do with time. They were in just this, every day was the same. It didn't matter what time it was. It didn't matter what day it was. Every day was the same. We did the same things. We just really had no life. So he said, the first thing I want you to do is to start a calendar. and to notice when the calendar that based on the moon, the phases of the moon. And so they started this calendar, and it was going to be like, there's going to be days that are different from other days. There's going to be days of rest. There's going to be days of festivals. So, and so he gave them this hope and this way out of this Groundhog's Day loop of every single day being the same. They started to believe that things could be different, that they could really escape this and come out of this time warp that they were in. The second thing that he had to do was they had to take a stand against this idolatry that was going on in Egypt, that was surrounding them. The lamb was an Egyptian idol, and God said, I want you, and it wasn't just a few people, like the leaders had to do this. Every single person had to be a part of this. If you wanted to draw the line in the sand and make your commitment of you're going to stay in Egypt, you're going to stay here, or you're going to believe in the one true God, the God of creation, you're going to do what he tells you to do. He wants you to get the Egyptian god, the lamb, eat him for dinner, put the blood of the lamb on your doorposts. Okay? So this was just, it's one thing to come out of Egypt physically, but they had to come out of Egypt spiritually. They had to take a stand against idolatry. So we talk about how each one of our shepherds takes on one of the emotional characteristics of God, and how each one stands for one of the universal laws for all of mankind. So Moses has this quality of netzach, which means victory and perseverance and eternal victory, victory to the end. And he also, and so he stands for the commandment of thou shalt not commit idolatry. He showed us how to choose the God of the Hebrews over all other gods. Okay, so we always want to say, how do we take this and make a personal application to our lives? And coming out of Egypt is symbolic to coming out of any kind of a rut that you find yourself in, anything that you find that's kind of enslaving you, bad habits where you can't live your best life, and you need this strength to move forward. And so one of the things we find out with Moses is that it was really Moses and his brother Aaron that went to Pharaoh, and Moses and Aaron that led the people into the desert and led them to Mount Sinai. And so tomorrow night we're going to be talking about Aaron and what he brings to the table, and it's like a right leg, left leg idea of they're both equal, they're both needed when it comes to moving forward in life and to getting out of a rut and to getting out of slavery. The gift that Aaron brings right along with the gift that Moses brings, they just work together for us. And so we'll talk more about Aaron on the fifth night. But this idea, there's two things we want to take from this idea of netzach and victory and perseverance. It's like when you think of professional sports, it's not always the tallest person or the biggest person or the fastest person. It's always the person that has that eye on the goal. Like he knows what he wants and he has that focus. And then the second thing is just that mental toughness, because when you're trying to get somewhere, there's all kinds of things that people come against you. There's so many things we can get trapped in, these false idols of our day that can enslave us, and we can end up in these habits. We can be just stuck. And so we want to know, it's important to know that we're made in the image of God, that we have this characteristic of victory inside of us. We have to tap into it, and it has to be the right kind of victory, because you remember, like, the people were having this victory. They were building the Tower of Babel, and they were accomplishing that goal on the one hand, but on the other hand, they totally left God out of the picture. So the kind of victory that we want is the victory that we're not putting ourselves before God. We're not putting any idols, modern day idols. Nothing comes before our relationship with God. So that's what Moses teaches us. when we grab on to this narrative of learning who the God of the Jews was, who the God who said, I am the Lord your God who took you out of Egypt, when we attach ourselves to that narrative, remember how Ruth said to her mother-in-law, your God is my God, your people are my people, where you go, I will go. And so it's like all of us have to find our way to the God of Moses, to the God of the Torah, to the God who took those people out of Egypt. And this is the greatest eternal victory that we can have. So this is Netzach. This is we can't ever say, well, I'm just not good enough. I don't have what it takes, because we do have what it takes. It's inside us. And we just have to pray to God to help us with our Netzach, help us with our perseverance and our mental toughness and whatever it takes to get moving forward. And to just have that victory at the end. Just real quick, I don't know if you ever saw that movie Groundhog's Day. It seems like it's like a comedy, but if you watch it again, there's so much spiritual significance in that movie, because in the beginning of the movie, Bill Murray, he's really a jerk. He wants to date his coworker there. And by the end of the movie, he's stuck in Groundhog's Day. The movie takes about 30 or 40 years, and he becomes, a professional piano player, an ice sculptor. He does a Heimlich maneuver on somebody. He's actually, by the end of the movie, he's actually an asset to society. He gets the girl, because that's his focus. I want her to not slap me every day. And he finally gets the girl. And the only way that he can come out of Groundhog's Day is to change his behavior. So he totally transforms, okay? So this is what's available to all of us, this transformative power, this victory to really be different, to really come out of ourselves, our own bad habits, and to really be an asset to society, to really win the prize, to really be the kind of people that God wants us to be, to get rid of all the idols in our life. Just the greatest victory we can have is when good overcomes evil. Okay, that's the goal here. All right. We'll see you next time when we talk about Aaron.